So we have been noticed some cases that, especially those outside China operations, they are adopting centralized strategy to pursue synergy quickly. So in some other cases, the company needs to adjust its strategy to function well in an overseas market. So they will be following the decentralized strategy. So when to give the overseas operation team more flexibility to tackle the challenges from fast-changing markets. So it's one way is centralized to make more scale. And the other way is that you probably need to deal with the scope, deal with the other market's needs. They want new products, not exactly the product you offer to them, or the marketing strategy you offer to them.
So this is a very classical question in IB. And there is one very famous theory that actually answers that question, which is called the Integration Responsiveness Framework developed by Bartlett and Ghoshal. And what it says is that certain industries, they allow you more standardization. So the product is basically a commodity. It's when the tastes are the same in every country, is where consumer preferences are the same. And it's where there is large benefits of scale and standardization. So in that sense, you can standardize. You can basically produce the same product all over the world. You can have the same computer, for example, the same music kind of player, maybe even the same hamburger. You can do it exactly the same. And then on the opposite side, there is kind of industries that have more need for adaptation, when consumer tastes are different and where you buy things differently, and there's heavy regulations, for example. You can think in the consulting industry, it's very hard to say we do it one way, because Chinese companies might need a different approach and have different questions that they tackle than US or European companies. So you need to adapt much more. So consulting is a typical industry where you have more adaptation than, for example, consumer electronics, where you have much more standardization. And then you have some industries where there are demand for both things. For example, telecom, there's huge benefits of standardization. And then there's also huge benefits of actually local adaptation. For example, the way that you provide a telecom service in India and Bangladesh is very different from US and Norway or Europe. So in those type of industries, we call them transnational industries, because you have the pressure for both adaptation and also for standardization. So the global industries are those where you have a high benefit of globalization. And then we call them multi-domestic or multinational industries that are very localized. So actually, if you are a company, you need to analyze your industry and say, what are the needs for globalization and localization in my industry? And then you might figure out that maybe for my industry, a global strategy is better, or maybe a multinational strategy is better.
So there is a classic case for differentiate the centralized and decentralized. For example, like in China, KFC will be producing more Chinese-oriented food rather than McDonald's. So the KFC will be providing the Chinese breakfast, so tailored for the Shanghainese taste or whatsoever. So this is what we've been noticed, that decentralized market, new product development.
So within one, you could say, industry, you could find some players that are more standard and some players that are more adaptive, more localized, and both can enjoy some benefits. But usually you could say the food industry is generally more localized still, although there are some pockets of it, like McDonald's, with hamburgers, maybe pizzas, these things that are more global.
So we say that in that cases, you mentioned. So if they would like to adopt decentralized strategy, so do they need to change the organizational structure of the global company?
So usually in those companies with a more decentralized structure, they have more autonomy, more stronger local subsidiaries. Whereas in a global structure with standardization, the local subsidiaries are much weaker. Maybe they only perform one function, for example. Maybe you have large production units. And then locally you might have a marketing unit, marketing and sales. Marketing and sales is usually local because you need to be close to the customer. Whereas those back-end
so
activities,
those R&Ds and
R&D, sourcing, very often production also is more centralized. So the more adaptive your strategy is, the more you would localize, the more you would have local. Because if your strategy is to do everything differently in each market, like your example with KFC here, then you need to, obviously, to have production local, you need to have R&D local, you need to have, you know, HR local and these things. Whereas in the centralized structure, you would have more things central.
Yeah, so have you ever noticed that those Fortune 500 multinationals, where they are playing in China, so in the last 10 years, so what kind of strategies they adopt?
Yeah.
More centralized or decentralized?
I think you would find many of them are transnational. It means that they're trying to do a little bit of both. So they're trying to think global, but act local. So they try to centralize what they can of their value activities. But then they realize that they also need to be responsive. Actually, there is a famous quote from one chairman of Coca-Cola saying that they try to centralize too much. So they also recognize that they need to be local. But of course, you know, there is huge benefits of standardization. So you also want to get those benefits.